Hey everyone, welcome to the Annie Tunes In podcast. Today's episode is with Grant Mitt. Grant is a crypto contributor with Fox Business. He is the owner of the Mitt Group, and we talk about all things business, all things saving, all things crypto on this episode, and all things recession. So check this one out. Hey Grant, how are you?
I'm good.
You in Houston, Texas?
No, so I'm from Houston, but I live in Austin, so I'm out in Austin right now.
Oh, nice. How do you like it?
It's beautiful. It's you can see all these buildings behind me. It's growing like crazy. There's a new building every day, and
Yeah, it looks like Miami back there.
yeah, no, yeah, it's booming. Like there's a new building. It seems like every month is something's popping up. So yeah, Austin's great.
That's insane. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I want to talk first about how you got started. I read a little bit about you and kind of like the college journey.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you got started with everything.
Okay, so I played college sports. And obviously I guess the whole first part of my life, I was obsessed with sports. All I cared about was football, baseball, basketball, everything, golf. And I went to play sports in California, Long Beach, City College, and I played quarterback there. And I ended up transferring to a small junior college in New York and started playing football out there. And pretty much what happened is I kind of realized that I had to be basically the next Drew Brees to make it to the NFL. And I had smaller university offers like D1 AA's and D2s and stuff like that. And I kind of realized like, look, it wasn't going to happen. I was just going to play for an extra 2 years. And so kind of what I started doing is trying to start online businesses, uh, trying to do, work sales jobs, do anything I can to learn business and learn sales and learn finance. And I would just go sit in the middle of Barnes and Noble in Brooklyn, New York, and just read anything I could get my hands on to kind of learn because I never really had a mentor or somebody to help me. And so by the time I moved back to Houston, I was super broke. I mean, as broke as you could be, I had no money. And I moved back to Houston because I had family there. So my mom lived there, my dad had lived there. They're separated, so they lived in different parts, whatever. And so I assumed, I have a network there, which I had no network there. I just told myself that. And I transferred to University of Houston. And so when I got to University of Houston, I got there on orientation and I found out none of my credits were accepted at all. So I was supposed to be a senior and I show up, on the orientation, it's supposed to be like a feel good day. You're excited, you're getting to the school and all that good stuff. And my guidance counselor knew who I was before I got there. And I was like, they're like, hey, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, wait, why do you need to talk to me? Like, how do you even know who I am? And she's like, you're supposed to be a senior, but here you're a freshman. And I was like, what?
Oh
So
my God. That's
yeah,
bullshit. That's not cool.
it is bullshit. It was horrible and I had this whole master plan and I had this job set up at this sales company. And so I'm 22 at the time. All of my friends are now graduating school. So they have these graduation pics, the ones of them throwing the hat and they're like in a forest.
Sucks.
So the ones that make you feel bad about your life, right?
Yeah.
Those ones. And I'm 22 and my football career is obviously had not worked out. And so I moved back to Houston to save money. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to crash on my mom's couch for a year. So I'm sleeping on my mom's couch. This is like the first 2 weeks. I'm sleeping on my mom's couch. I'm Ubering all across Houston to make money and doing Uber Eats and stuff.
Okay.
This is 22. So this is only 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. I just found out I was a freshman again when I was supposed to be a senior. And the job that I had lined up, the Houston office literally went out of business and had to move to Austin. I didn't have enough money to move to Austin. And so I was like, this is like really, really bad. And basically what happened is I'm moving all across Houston and I'm freaking out. I'm like, I got to figure it out. I got to figure it out. And when I had lived, if you backtrack on the story, when I lived out in Long Beach, California, which is just outside of Los Angeles, everywhere I went, this is back in 2014-ish, 2014, 2015, everyone was talking about solar and how is the next big thing. So many people were getting into it. And to that point, this is what's eight-ish years ago, I would say. I didn't know anybody that had solar in Texas. I'm sure I'd seen it a few times, but it wasn't something that people were thinking about or talking about. And I was like, that's it. I need to get into solar. And so in between my Uber, like when I'd be driving people, like on the breaks, you're waiting for the next person, I would apply for sales jobs where that are full commission because I knew there'd be a higher chance of them hiring me. There's no risk, you know, if I suck, they fire me. But specifically for solar, and I got a resume and I started learning solar. And then, you know, long story short, I ended up starting my own company, which I'm sure we can talk about later. But that's kind of the beginning part of my story, was just kind of just figuring it out as much as I can, just being a scrappy person, trying to figure out, trying to make the best of what he had, and eventually figured it out. But there was a lot of bumps for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So were there other things that you wanted to do besides solar, but you just kind of picked that and ran with it? Is that kind of how that happened?
Yeah, so it's like one thing that I always had an issue with growing up, and something that always like was hard for me to process is, you hear about all these sayings about like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Elon Musk, and a lot of times the advice you get is like, do what you love. And we're like, what the hell does that even mean? Like, I love sports. I'm not Drew Brees. You know, this is like not working out. This whole like whatever, do what you love. And it's like a great theory, because obviously if you love what you do, that makes it even better. Like if you can find that, obviously that's a no-brainer, right? But I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to lead other people, help other people, and help them be successful in business, you know, in different ways. But I didn't know what the product or business was going to be. That was the hardest thing, because you know you got something in you, you know you could do something, and you think you have the skill to do it. But you know, I didn't come from a family where I had some dad that was like this. You know, my dad was amazing. He supported me. He's amazing. Same thing from my mom, but they weren't like running some $1 billion company or even a million. They weren't even running any companies.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know anybody besides a friends type thing that were doing that. So I just kind of had to be on Google and read books. And so what I was more focused on is like, what early on, what could make me money? Like I realized like just from moving back and seeing where everything was going, is I had to make 6 figures to live, at least going in the right direction in the life that I wanted. And so that was the first thing, is like, I need to get in an industry that I believe in, that's going to be emerging, that if we have a recession or anything, is still going to be a hyper growth industry, and learn, get my feet wet, and we'll figure the rest out. But first I need to do the same, because I was just in panic mode at that point. So that's kind of how it started off.
Yeah. And I think it's good. Like, obviously, everyone says to do what you love, but I think it's good to like play on your strengths too. Cause I hear that a lot. Cause I feel like if you're strong at something, it makes you love it more. Cause you're like, now it comes easy. So now I'm liking it. So I think even more than like loving like your passion, it's almost like, what are you strong at? And then what can make you money? So that's huge. And I also read that you saved up like $150,000 or something.
Yes.
Was that before you started your business?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So obviously I did not have $150,000 at this point of the story at all. I had no money.
Yeah.
I remember, man, it's crazy because that article, the Business Insider article, when they reached out to do that on me, it was like more work than buying a house. Like I had to prove on these dates that I was super broke. I had to prove like in every section of it, like exactly like not only like pay stubs, but like your actual bank statements, because you know your bank statements go on forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, so what I did is obviously I got into solar in sales. I got the job, long story short, and I started doing really good. I was working crazy hours. I'd work 7 days a week, basically for almost that entire year. There was a few times I was off on the weekends, but all I would do is work, because I was broke and I was young, ambitious, whatever, right? And so what I did is, in the past, I was never really good with money, mainly because I'd never made it. So my first sales job when I was in California, I made like 35, 40 grand, something like that. And if I had $1,000, I had $1,000 to spend. I would just blow it. And I kind of had a wake up call where I was like, this isn't going to work. Right. So
were you still living at home at this time, by the way? So you didn't have rent to pay?
Yes. Okay. Yes. For that first year.
Got it.
Okay. So me starting my company, it was about 2.5 years. Yes, 2.5 years, give or take, from this part of the story where I just got this job. So what I did is I realized it's like, look, I want to live a really good life. Obviously, that first year living with my mom, even though I was on the couch, that helped absolutely, because I would have been paying 1,500 or 1,200 or whatever in rent. So that did help. But what I did is basically I set a goal and a standard where at the worst, I'm saving 10% of my money, but ambitiously, I want to get to as high as 50%, 50, 60% as the highest. Average was about 35 to 40% of my income. So what I would do is the second, let's say someone makes $10,000 in a month. Let's just, for simple math. The second that comes in, immediately, if you're W-2, you already have that pulled out. So you really have 7,500. But if you're 1099 or you have a small business or you're a trainer, you're whatever, and you have to separate your taxes for you, I had a bank account where the second that 10,000 hits per se, let's just say I got paid once in a month, even though it would be twice back then, I would put 25% into the tax account immediately, because it's really not my money. So I didn't even want to think about it. So I'm putting it in the tax account and it says tax account. Then I have 75% left. Next, I'm going to, okay, what are my hard costs? Meaning, like, what is the amount of money that I need to breathe, to eat, to have shelter? Like, what is my minimum amount? What is that money? And I put that money in my checking account. All right. So that's in there, whatever that number is. Let's say it's 2,000. So now I have 5,500 left over. Then 10%, it has to be spent on something dumb. You have to do something dumb with it, because if you're working like crazy, your brain, like our brains are super weird. They're really, all they're doing is meant to survive. And you teach it what's good behavior and what's bad behavior based off of like reward and discipline. So if I made 10,000 that month, I need to spend the remaining, like that bulk, my real money was $7,500. I need to spend $750 on something dumb, something fun, go on a trip,
A flight, yes.
fly, right? But yeah, go on a weekend trip, right? Stay somewhere, stay with some friends, do whatever. Buy a new pair of shoes, do whatever, something dumb that makes you feel good for what you work hard, right? So now I'm down to $6,800, and then that's $4,800. So I'm down to like 4,000 ish right now. Now I'm taking that remaining 4,000 and it has to be allocated perfectly. So saving money does not make you wealthy, but you do need some cash reserve. So out of that, maybe take 1,500, 1,000 to 1,500 and put it in your savings. Now that remaining 2,500 bucks or so, invest every single penny. So what I would do is, at the time, this was 2018, I started buying stocks like Tesla and some other things. But I also realized that crypto was the next big wave, and it was down and out. And I invested in it some in 2017 and stuff, but I didn't have a lot of money. So I started focusing heavy on growth stocks and then crypto. And crypto was dead then. Bitcoin was at 3,300, 3,500, something like that, 4,000 at the top. Ethereum was at $250, $200, $300. Yeah. And so I was making six figures, which is good, but I wasn't just cranking it out. I was like only investing extra $2,000 to $4,000 a month, give or take, some more, some less. And so I was just buying a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of Ethereum, and a little bit of like Tesla and other stocks that were growth stocks every single week or every single payroll, just nonstop for 2 years straight. So I'm saving the bulk of my income and I'm putting it into hyper growth stocks. Now I had a lot of help because obviously we know what happened with Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it made me a lot of money. But I was like clockwork, like it was a machine of saving and investing, on top of obviously, I guess, some luck, because I hit it big with a couple of those different investments, but it was rinse and repeat. And then 2 years in, all of a sudden I have over $100,000, and I'm super young because obviously I had great wins. I had well over 3, 4, 500% returns on all this stuff, but the growth stocks and then saving, I'd saved up such a big nest egg. So I was wanting to start a company, and I actually didn't want to start a company. I didn't want to start a solar company. but it ended up just kind of falling in its place. And so, yeah, I mean, it's all about being disciplined, because you never know what the opportunity is going to come for you and what industry. You don't know who's going to come up to you and go, hey, we're doing this, or hey, have you ever thought of this? And then there's an idea. So I didn't know what it was going to be. I just knew that I had to be ready for the opportunity. And it presented itself, and then I just attacked on it. I didn't need any investor. I didn't need anybody to put money down. I didn't need to take a loan. I did everything self-funded just because I was prepared.
So I hear a lot about not saving anything in your bank account, like very minimal, and then putting the rest in investments. Do you kind of recommend that? Like, what would you say is like the, I guess, minimum amount to keep in your bank?
It's subjective to the person. So that's another thing too, is that just before I answer that, is like, just, you always want to be careful who you're listening to, because there's a lot of, it's contextual. So it's right to a point, and there's a lot of different ways to be successful. So I could say something, the next guy say something, there could be 10 different people and they all could be successful, but it's going to be different for what works for you. In general, yes, leaving money in your bank, you're losing money on inflation every single month. Even, and I used to yell this from the rooftops when inflation was 2 and 3%. Now it's, they say it's 8 or 9%, but everything that we all buy, rent, food, gas, travel,
right now.
it's over 2 years, it's 40 to 100%, literally. So that's more probably realistic. So yeah, what I would say is it depends on your operating expenses and what you have out, what cash you have outflowing every single month. So if it's just you, for example, you got to have enough liquid cash that no major issue can put you under or put you in a bind. Let me give you an example. If it's just me and I'm not doing anything crazy, and let's say you're a bachelor, you're 23, just got out of college, girl or guy, whatever, tires, $1,500, right? Your car engine, something happens, you got to spend $2,000. You end up getting a job in some other place and you need to break your lease and move. That might be, your rent's usually $1,400, but you got to pay 2 months. That's $2,800. Things like that are important. So for a person like that, an aggressive low amount would be 10 to 15, maybe even $20,000 tops. Now, if you're wanting money, for example, planning to start some type of business, or you are wanting to invest in real estate, obviously that's different than a stock market. So for example, like if we go back, let's say that's 4 years, 3-4 years, or whatever it was, if I knew that my first main investment besides stocks and crypto was real estate, I would have made a separate real estate bank account, which I have now. And I would be, if I got that $4,000 pot of that extra money that I'm investing, I would just be allocating $1,000 a month into that real estate fund. So what you're doing is you're saving to invest. You're saving to put that money to work. But cash is value, because when that opportunity comes, or when the rainy day comes, you are ready for it. So you can't just, like, for example, when Grant Cardone says stay broke, he's right. I agree with him 100%. But the difference between Grant Cardone and anybody else that's listening is Grant Cardone has millions of dollars in residual income coming in. So until you have that residual income coming in cash flow, whether through real estate, dividends really, but you're not really selling that, or a business or some type of job, then you can't stay broke. You have to be buying more income, meaning you're buying residual income, you're buying into a business, you're buying into investments that are producing cash flow that allows you to be aggressive and expand at a different level. So it just depends on the situation, but you should be, I believe, and this is what's worked for me, everyone's different, is aggressively investing early on, because compound interest over time beats any amazing day trader or person that's just getting random wins, because the multiples are just insane.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And of course, Grant, like he's giving advice based on what he does and what he knows. So that's very different. But for you personally, how much money did you put down to invest in your business when you first started? Like out of that 150?
It was a good amount. It was a good amount. I mean, basically what I needed to do is and to start that same business now would like right now with inflation and how like materials and everything, it would have costed me now almost $1 million.
Jesus, that's insane.
Yeah. And that's not only because of inflation, but just because of what the market's done.
Yeah.
And even then, most people, it would just be, it's just so difficult. It's like you have to be so prepared and know what you're doing. Basically, I was prepared to make $0 for 6 months, not profit for 6 months. And even then, I mean, we were extremely aggressive and I was doing everything. Like when we started, I was CFO, I was a COO, I was a CEO, I was a director of sales, I was an RSM,
Oh
I
my
was the number
God.
one sales rep. I did accounting, I did payroll, I did all the admin work, I did all the project management. So there was not a thing that I didn't know how to do, because it was at the beginning, it was me and a couple salespeople, and we were just working our asses off, working crazy hours and building it.
Mhm.
And they did great. And then I started hiring out all the pieces and delegating, all those roles that I spoke of. So then I could actually be a real CEO compared to what I was. So, starting a business and succeeding. And I think in most cases, one misconception is now and I heard Gary Vee talk about this, and I agree with him, is it's now, if you get on Instagram, it's kind of depressing many times because it looks like everyone's just in Ibiza. Like every person I ever met was in Greece last week. I don't, you know what I mean?
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone. So it's like everyone's living this magical lifestyle, and everyone's an entrepreneur. Especially if you go to Miami, or Florida, everyone's an
Oh yeah.
entrepreneur. And you don't know what the hell they're doing. They're actually an entrepreneur. Like they do affiliate marketing. There's all this
They
stuff.
make it seem easy too. It's like frustrating.
Yeah, but and let me tell you, it's like the one thing I've learned that has blown my mind is one, few people really got it. Like few people really got it. No one makes money. No one makes money. Like, and the reason I can tell you this is because we do, obviously we're in residential commercial solar. So I'm talking to, like, you already know, but for anybody that's listening, we're in commercial and residential solar. And so we're doing thousands of deals all across the country. And every time we're doing these deals, we're looking at these people because we have finance partners that finance all of these installs, these $20,000 to $100,000 deals. So we know what their income is, we know what their credit is, we know if they have bankruptcies, we know everything.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, the percentage of people who actually like looking at pay stubs actually make over even 300 grand is so minuscule,
Wow.
it would blow your mind. I'm talking to houses, beautiful, on a golf course, this, that, and the other. I got BMWs, Mercedes, 500 credit score, income 180,000.
That's insane.
Never see it. No one has money. No one has money. So all of these people, like, you should be skeptical of, I mean, it is just, it's too hard out here. It's too hard. And you have to, just to have an opportunity to win, be unbelievable at everything you do. And even then it is hard. Real statistics are, if you look at businesses, 86% of businesses in the United States of America break even or lose money. And 0.5% of all businesses of that huge pack actually ever revenue over $10 million. One half of 1%. And if you actually look at and you research what's the average income of a business owner and what's the average income of an employee, the employee is actually about 3,000 to 4,000 or 5,000, something like that. It's less than 10,000 more than the business owner. Business owners do not make a lot of money. Entrepreneur is not as being in Dubai and all this stuff. Look, if they're all those places and they're in their 20s or 30s and their company's not revenuing well over 10 million, and if most businesses that are revenuing 10 million, their profit margins are usually less than 5% or they're losing money, they're in unbelievable amounts of debt. They have debt up to their freaking kneecaps and they're making everything look like it's great, and it's a disaster. So what the best thing I always say is, like, is first realizing that most people are full of shit. And that's not to knock them, because it's hard. But don't judge yourself and realize like, look, if you can go out and make 100, 200, $300,000, you're a fucking badass. Like you are a badass. That does not happen anywhere. Doctors go to school for 15 years and $300,000 of debt to make 2 to 300,000.
Yeah.
You're a freaking badass. That's number one. But it is actually better to control your income and what you're making. And you're smart and you're going, okay, I'm 20, 30 years old, I'm super young, and I'm going to put away $2,000 to $10,000 or whatever it is a month. And even if it's, you only have $200 a month to invest, you do that every month, you're going to be a multimillionaire by the time you're done, because you're disciplined in doing the little things right. And that's assuming you don't figure it out, which you will. That's assuming you don't 10 years from now, 5 years or 3 years from now, become so talented and so well-versed and so connected and so innovative and creative that you come up with this, and all of a sudden you're making 500 or a million or 2 million or more, whatever. So it's just, most people, they don't got it. And I'm telling you, from knowing business owners, you talk to them and different things, and we've done different things. We're consider investing in other companies, and you actually pull back the stuff and you look at how much debt they are. That Amex thing has $100,000 of debt, $2 million of debt, and you're like, what the hell? You drive a Porsche? You can't make this up. And so
That's so crazy.
It kind of makes you go like, okay, I'm doing better. Like I say that even when I was 23 and I was in sales and I was finally making 100K and I was stressed out about everything. I was like, you know what? You're doing good. Keep going, keep going. Mm-hmm. Long run, you win by doing these little things right. Like, don't judge yourself. It takes time. You know what I mean?
It definitely. Yeah. You're 26, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're the same age as me, but I agree. Starting young and realizing that it's a long game and not a short one, and trying to race to the finish line is the key. Because I think that a lot of people getting out of college, they just are looking at the money and what can they do quickly and all these things. And it kills them because they're not looking at the long term. So talking about investing, I know you're big with crypto. So talk to me a little bit about the Bitcoin situation right now. I know it's all over the place. It's crazy. Where do you see it kind of going?
Mm-hmm.
In the next few months, I should say.
In the next 2 months?
I should say the next few months. Give you a timeline over there.
Okay. So Bitcoin has kind of turned, or crypto has turned into a cyclical investment, meaning that it follows a pretty, they always say like history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. So what I could say, it could change and all of a sudden just go to 100,000. Yeah, it's possible, but typically it follows the same trajectory and path as it always has. So if you actually go research, and everyone listens, go research Bitcoin's like actual chart and look at it since 2013, it pretty much follows the exact same path, but it always goes up because there's a limited supply. There's only 21 million Bitcoins and they're slowly being mined over time. So if you look at, common sense, just looking at simple economics, you know that it's going to go up hypothetically, but it's going to take some time. So it goes in these massive bull runs and then it basically drops 70 to 85%. And it lingers for about a year to a year and a half, and then it goes back up again. So we just had the best bull run ever. The crypto market got around 1.5-ish trillion, something like that. Bitcoin eclipsed 1 trillion at its peak when it hit about 69,000. So it's going to be likely, I think it's at some point may drop below 15,000. If it does, that's like the greatest gift ever that we could get, because you can accumulate more. Could say where it is now, but I think it's likely going to take till probably 2024 to re-enter another bull market, maybe 2025, depending on how bad this recession is. Because the Federal Reserve is likely not going to drop interest rates unless the economy just starts literally obliterating in thin air, which is possible. They probably won't start lowering interest rates till maybe late 2023, but I would say probably realistic 2024. So that's, and just for simple terms, when they start lowering interest rates, all that means is they're allowing more liquidity to flow into the economy, because interest rates are lower. People start taking more loans. The banks start lending more things out. People start buying more houses, starting more businesses, and slowly that domino starts falling and more liquidity goes into the market. people have more capital to spend, they start thinking they're wealthier than they are again, and then we start the upward trend again. So in the next 2 months, the same or lower. Right now we're in a bear market, so you think it's going up and then it goes down the same amount. I think it'll follow that same path for the next probably definitely next 2 months, but I would say for the next year or so, give or take, and then finally get its feet under it and start doing really good things again.
Yeah, so now's the time to buy and hold off and look at where it's going.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like right now, we need to be thinking it's like, who cares if it goes up, down, left, right, sideways, or spins around 3 times? Just put $100 to $1,000 a week in crypto, in Bitcoin and Ethereum, and don't care what happens. And if it goes down, thank God and buy some more.
So you think the Bitcoin and Ethereum better than the smaller coins?
Yes. So what I would say is on the smaller coins and most projects out of all of crypto, about 95% will likely die. Just like in the 2000 tech boom, people would make cat.com and become a freaking gajillionaire back in the late 90s. Like they would have one little website, they'd get this random valuation, all these VCs would dump money, all of a sudden they're $1 billion company and they have no product. And then they all get wiped out. And that's what is happening now with a lot of these exchanges and a lot of these different currencies is they're getting wiped out, and they need to get wiped out because they're worthless. They have no real backing. They don't really have any real utility. And so I would stay away from those until the next bull market. When the bull market hits, and you'll know because Bitcoin will go crazy, Ethereum will go crazy, stupid numbers, right? It'll start going back up and start going towards that 100,000 plus mark. That's when you throw money at freaking the most random thing ever, and then make your quick money and sell as quick as possible. And that was like when we saw during the bull market, where things like Dogecoin and all of these small currencies, Solana's not bad. Solana, ADA, Polygon, Avalanche, all these different ones were having just insane growth spurts over a 3 to 6 months basis. The trick is when those go crazy, don't think it's the next Bitcoin, just sell, take your money and run, put it in Bitcoin and just keep the long term.
Do you think Bitcoin has the chance to hit like 300,000?
Oh, it'll go way over that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bitcoin, the reason why people are so gun ho on Bitcoin, and obviously it's the highest price one, but it's because it's the same reason why gold is. So it's digital gold and there's a limited supply. So no single entity or person can change the way that Bitcoin is programmed. So you can't even attack or hack Bitcoin, because the only way to take down Bitcoin, there's too many points of attack. So the only way to end crypto is to obliterate Earth, basically nuke the entire Earth. And there's not one point of internet open anywhere in the world. So because there's a limited supply and only so many people can own Bitcoin, it naturally draws the price up the same way that gold does. So gold's market cap is about $9.5 to $10 trillion right now, and it slowly creeps up. But you can't really get any more gold than there is. So that's why the price keeps going up as inflation goes up. And so Bitcoin is the exact same thing. It can't be controlled. It's a better form of utility, meaning that let's say I have $1 million worth of gold. What am I going to carry these bars in me with the airport? I can't do that, right? I can have a little flash drive and have Bitcoin and have it anywhere in the world and no one knows. But because there's a limited supply, that's what makes it so valuable. Now, with that being said, if Bitcoin only matches gold's trajectory, so let's say Bitcoin only is worth $9.5 trillion, which if you're looking at the next 10, 20 years, that's probably reasonable. Then we're looking at about a $400,000 to $500,000 per Bitcoin basis.
Wow.
If it doubles that, now we're looking at about $1 million.
Shit, that's crazy.
Right. So if you're thinking like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and we think in things, being American is we have it easy. I was just in Santiago, Chile, and I was talking to them, and they've had all these revolutions. Like if a new person gets elected president, everything changes. The entire economy changes. They rewrite the entire constitution like this. It's not like America where we scream at each other. And while it sucks, we can't get anything done, and that's tough, that's also a good thing, because we can't get the wrong guy in. If the wrong guy or girl gets in there, they can't run the entire country. It'd be a lot more difficult. So I would talk to them and I was like, how easy is it for you guys to access capital? Like, how does it work with credit cards? How does it work with loans? And they said, Grant, it's very difficult to move up classes in Chile. And they're like, and this is crazy us saying this because we're a first world country and we're one of the best economic countries in South America. So even them, which are way better than pretty much everyone around them for the most part, if they have a loan to go to university, to go to college, they can't have access to any other loans in any part of finance. And if they do get a loan from a bank, they're paying 3% interest a month, 36% per year. So they're screwed. They're like, if you don't invent the next big thing, which it's hard to even have the information to even learn how to even do something, you really are stuck where you're at. And so it's very, very difficult. And so that's why the fastest growing millionaires in the United States are usually immigrants, because they found a way to survive in countries way worse off than Chile or somewhere else like that. Like, for example, Africa, where even if you're a genius, even if you have the best business ever, these European countries have came in, colonized them, taken all their resources, and made them use their currency that's backed by only them, and allowed them only to trade with countries that are neighboring right around that they also control. So they can't have access and participate in global trade, and they're binded by their currency, which is controlled by an outside source. So they're screwed. So even if they're 10 times better than you and I, they have no chance unless they find a way to get to a first world country like the United States or somewhere in the European Union, and they have the visas and everything to be able to legally participate in that economy. And that's also them getting there and not having any connections, not having any extra resources. So if you're a middle class person, no matter what you look like, any single person can walk into a bank with a 700 credit score and get access to a lot of things that people don't even realize. And they have no clue, because you can be average, you can be lazy, and you can still make 70 grand in America.
That's true.
You can be lazy and you can be not that smart, and you can still live in the suburbs somewhere, qualify for a loan. I was on this because one of my employees are getting first-time home buyer loans, and you can even qualify for a house in some cases with 3.5% down with a 580 credit score. That's which means like, hey, you are bad at managing your money, and we are going to give you a $250,000 loan.
Wow.
America is different. You don't have to be good to win in America.
Yeah.
You don't. Like, you can survive. And that's why we have first world problems. You worry about anxiety, you worry about depression, you worry about, I don't want to get too controversial, but you worry about, I don't know if I want to get in that part, but we worry about other things. I don't want to
it's fine.
I don't want to get, for example, like us going, we have to be able to support LGBTQ people. I'm a huge supporter of them. But at the same time, a biological man, I don't think should be competing in women's sports. And that's
I agree with that. I
don't believe that. I think they should be protected and have all the rights in the world and deserve all the happiness in the world because they're amazing people. But a 6'4" biological man shouldn't be competing against women.
Oh yeah. I got kind of pissed at that thing that happened too. Yeah, I agree with you. It just doesn't make sense.
I disagree with it. If someone disagrees with me, that's fine. It's nothing personal, but that's things you debate about when you're a first world country. That's things that you debate about, like, for example, that and other things when it comes to being stressed and anxious about this because you have to go work nonstop. There's a lot of bad, I think, psychological things that have happened due to this COVID stuff, where people were making 2 to 3 times more than they've ever made to do nothing, and their brains weren't even fully developed. So within the early stages of your life, where you're supposed to be taught how to face massive adversity, how to work 70-hour weeks and get told no constantly, and to almost lose your job and have to find a way to survive on your own, we basically cut that from so many different people's lives and said, you know what? if it's tough, don't worry, we got you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the easiest way to manipulate a population. That's the easiest way to make a generation of people reliant on outside sources to survive. And the problem is the way that we're training and developing Americans now, I'm talking about America since I'm American, you're American, is the backs of the shoulders of people who built this country and made us. We have a lot of things we got to fix. Hell yeah. Well, we all know this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But into a country with 300 million people has a $22 trillion GDP, which means China has almost 2 billion people and doesn't even have anything close to that. The largest military ever, the most successful country ever built in the history of mankind. The backs of those people, now we're living under the shade of the tree that they planted so long ago, and they went through hell. And so now it's caused this entitlement to where people think that they deserve something because they went to some school, or because their dad or mom was this, or because they should because they're this. The world doesn't owe you shit. And at the end of the day, it's like, look, I'm no better than anybody else. And if someone else comes out here and beats me because I get complacent, then I deserve to go under. I deserve to feel that pain of what that's like. And I've felt that before, and other people have. And if you have, and you've grown up where, like, I didn't have a resource, I didn't have some family member to call and say, hey, like, I messed up. Can you send me $100,000 to float? I didn't have that. So I didn't have the chance to even let myself get in that opportunity. And even then, I consider myself or anybody else that's in America unbelievably privileged, because there's people in places like Africa and South America and in different parts of the world who might be 10 times more talented and 10 times more hungry than any person listen to this, myself, you, or anybody else, but they can't even do it because of where they live and their circumstances. So we really have no excuse. And so the internet, Bitcoin, that next decentralized world, hopefully, because you can see all the power shifting towards a more socialistic controlled type nature, because they're anticipating this decentralized world happening. Bitcoin gives that person in Africa that I speak of, or that person in Chile, to get on the internet, do courses in business, and sell everything in Bitcoin. And they can use that as a currency that's not manipulated by the US dollar. Because yes, inflation sucks. Nobody here is not feeling the hits of inflation, but our 10 or 15% inflation becomes 150% inflation other places, because the ripple down effect, we control the global economy with our currency. Their currency reacts to ours. So when we double the money supply and kill the value of our dollar, we are still okay because we control the financial system. We are the reserve currency of the world. Their small currency in Africa or in Eastern Europe or in South America was already worth not much at all. Now we diluted the money pool double. It's even worse for them. They're screwed even more. So Bitcoin is freedom. Bitcoin gives that person, it's more than the number going up or down. It's giving that person the ability to have global trade, do business with anybody, and not be manipulated by a bad leader or a good leader. Just, it works like a system regardless. And that's the power of cryptocurrency. And that's why when you start zooming out and you don't look at it from an American perspective, it's going to give these people a chance, and you're going to see trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars pouring into that, and it'll become the world reserve currency. I mean, every single country will be holding Bitcoin. And even if you want to buy it, you won't be able to buy it like you can now, because people won't be selling it. So the price will be very stable. It's just volatile now because, we only have 50% of the people that are just never going to sell. It goes down, everyone freaks out and sells. That will slowly calm down as the years and years go on, but it's going to take 10, 20, 30 years.
It's crazy how big it is when you break it down that way. And I think that's why a lot of people are afraid of it, is because they realize how huge it's going to be and that it's going to be something. Right. So, I mean, that's a great point. I think everyone has, having access to the internet and having access to these things is really going to change a lot of things. in the world. So it's really cool. And then speaking about kind of like, obviously we don't know where things are going with the recession, but what are kind of like, just to close this out, your top 3 tips going into something like a recession, as far as money goes and spending and investing and saving?
So first I would say is that every recession, the winners have still won. So if you're a winner, if you outwork everybody and you have a valuable business or product or service, you will win during a recession. A good business, a good product, if you work at a really good company, will grow through a recession. So one, I would say is you have to be willing to outwork and outperform everybody, and you have to be in the right vehicle. By vehicle, I mean business, industry, or sector that is hyper growth that people need and people will buy from, even if the stock market drops another 20%, even if we lay off 10% of the workforce in the United States, that still people will be going to. So make sure you're in the right vehicle, because you could be a talented person in the world, but if you're in the wrong industry, you're going to get hit and you have nothing you can do about it. So that's number one. 2 is recessions are extremely healthy and they're needed, because there's a saying from Warren Buffett, I hope I get it right, is when the tide goes back, you find out who was swimming naked the entire time. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of people that we were talking about earlier that are in Ibiza, they're in all these places, that they drive a Lambo, and you think they got all this money, but they're actually in so much debt that they're barely getting by because times were good. What happens is when times get bad, they can't do those things anymore. They get exposed, they get wiped out. Well, it's tough that they got wiped out. It's actually good and it's a healthy thing, because like, for example, that exchange in crypto, Celsius, people were leaving their Bitcoin on that exchange. They had no idea that they were underwater hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And now they're going to go bankrupt and all those people are losing their crypto because they didn't move it off exchanges. We need that company to go out of business because they're not good for the market. They're not good for any consumer, and it's bad. The SEC should go after them. So it's important. So know that it's actually giving you opportunity. And third, I would say when times are good, they make even the most talented people complacent. And it also makes you think that you're better than you are. It's a friendly reminder to know that you're beatable, and to know that you're a couple bad moves away from losing it all or making a major mistake that can set you back months or even years. So all the most innovative companies were all made during recessions because of that reason. Nobody, if you look at Airbnb, they had pitched ideas like Airbnb and Uber many years before that. But the problem is the economy was so good. Why would I ride with a stranger? I don't want to ride in a car with a stranger. Times are good. I'm making all this money, right?
Yeah.
Or Airbnb. I don't want to have someone in my house. Times are good. I'm making all this money. But when times go bad and you need to make extra money to survive and you don't want to pay what it would cost to go across town in a taxi, all of a sudden you're like, shit, I'll ride with you. What's your name? You got a pulse? You going to kill me? No, I'm not going to kill you. All right, cool. I'll pay it. And you're on. Same thing for Airbnb. People are now cool having an extra bedroom or doing these things. And the reason why they started innovating like that is because people had to survive. And that's how those ideas worked. And that's how those great companies were made. So it's a healthy thing. It's something you should embrace. And if you're starting, it's actually best to start in a recession, because you're starting from there and it only gets better from that point.
All right. That's a great tip. And I think everyone listening should take that into account, because it's kind of more motivating than what we're hearing online all the time and on the news with the recession. So thank you so much. I appreciate you sitting down with me. Now plug your stuff. I know you have a podcast and then your business as well. So where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Grant Mitt, GrantMitt. So I put different business stuff. I don't sell any courses. I don't do anything. I just give out as much free information as possible, because I'm in the process of continuing to grow a company. Like we'll do 30 million this year. I'm trying to convert it into a $100 million company. So you're seeing me learn as I go. So I don't have the golden book, but I just kind of like to help people learn things that I mess up on. So, and also have the Grant Mitt podcast, where I talk about similar things that we talked about today. And they're short and sweet, 15 to 20 minutes. It's available on all streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all that good stuff. But thank you so much for having me. I hope you keep crushing it. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
Thanks.
of course. Yeah, I'll let you know when all this is out and everything. But thanks for sitting down with me. And this is the Annie Tunes In podcast.